Hi, Evan here with another gear review. I know last time I said what I was going to do next was going to be sound gear, but I changed my mind, so sorry. I figured it would be best if I go ahead and knock out my third and final DJI gear review. This is the last piece of DJI equipment I have that I haven't done a review for, and since my last two videos have been DJI videos, might as well finish the trilogy. I kind of talked about this a little bit in the Osmo review. There's a little bit of crossover here. This is the DJI Inspire One. Well, technically it's the Inspire One Pro for professional. That's what pro means. As you can see here, there's a case. Cases are good. The Osmo doesn't come with a case. The Ronin MX notably does not come with a case, which is very aggravating. Inspire One Pro fortunately comes with a case. Thank you, DJI, for the case. Just some background, I have had this drone since late June or early July. It is now the end of December, so I've had it for about 6 months. And within the DJI drone life cycle, kind of where we're at is this, the Inspire One first came out in mid to late 2015. Now what makes it pro, I think there is a little fine tuning to the body. They added these little feet to make it a little taller. That's the main thing I remember reading about. The other main thing, I guess there's more than one main thing, is that this supports the X5, X5R cameras, which were not originally around when the Inspire One first came out. First things first, this is definitely a really cool drone. I mean, it's the coolest looking drone on the market, I feel pretty confident in saying. It has these super heavy duty like carbon fiber legs, which is really nice. Carbon fiber is really cool, I love carbon fiber. My wedding ring is made out of carbon fiber. I don't know, it's just rugged, it feels good. It feels like this is a serious drone. On the bottom it's got a little camera and little sensors, I guess, for ground sensors. So what happens is these legs go up and down. I'll show in a little bit when I go outside with it. So it's got retractable landing gears, which is just really cool to watch happen. It's just kind of badass thing to do. And what that does, it allows the camera to hang from the bottom and rotate 360 without seeing any legs in it, which is a common problem with the Phantom cameras. Got 2 batteries. If you're familiar with DJI gear, they have so many freaking batteries. It ships with this 4,500 milliwatt amp hour, whatever that. They also sell an expanded capacity 57 mAh battery. If there's a higher capacity one, of course you're going to go with that. But then it makes you wonder, why don't they just ship it with this one? Why isn't this just the only battery? Why is there a smaller capacity? Notably, they don't work with any other drone that DJI makes. In fact, they have part of the body of the drone is like built into the battery. So you snap it in and it completes the drone. Inspire 2 just came out and it uses completely different batteries, so I hate that about DJI, but whatever. For today's purposes, I'm just going to use my iPhone 6s Plus, which works just fine. A little bit of my history with DJI drones. The only other DJI drone I've ever owned was the DJI Phantom 2. That was back when they were still friends with GoPro. It had the little optional GoPro mount, and I bought a GoPro Hero 4 and mounted it to it. I absolutely fucking hated that drone. It was before they had integrated their own camera into it. I must have bought it right during that transition period where they broke up with GoPro. I guess the way they were in that life cycle is the drone existed and the camera stuff was all kind of separate, and the gimbal that came for it you had to buy separately, and then you had to buy the camera separately, and then you had to put it all together. I remember it came with like instructions, all these tools and screws and shit. But I finally got that up and running, got some GoPro footage, which I don't even know whatever even happened to that. But basically after I crashed and killed my Phantom 2, I sat around kind of waiting for drones with better cameras to come out. There are drones that can carry a Red. I own a Red. I'm probably never gonna put my Red on a drone. When the X5 camera came out, it's micro four thirds. The implication was that this was like a lot of the same technology in the GH4 camera. And so that was kind of exciting. It was like, oh, okay, I can basically get a DJI drone that flies a GH4 without having to buy a GH4. The stars are aligning, good enough camera, good enough drone. I need a drone, let's pull the trigger. I think I ended up spending about $4,000 on this setup. That's a lot. The drone itself was about, I think it was about 2,000, maybe like 2,500 at the time I bought it. And then the camera I think was about 1,500 to 2,000, I think, for the X5 camera. I bit the bullet. That was a huge part of my production budget for the film. It's also a long-term investment for my company. In retrospect now, do I feel good about the purchase? I don't know. Probably if I were to do it again, having had the experience with the footage out of this camera and just using the drone. I mean, I like the drone. It's definitely my favorite piece of DJI equipment that I've owned. My main complaints, again, come back to the X5 camera, which if you've seen my Osmo review, I kind of talk about how it's just not that great. All in all, $4,000 to get, you know, images from a camera that's just not that exciting or great is kind of a disappointing, I guess. I think the drone is much further along technology-wise than the cameras are. So I'm not necessarily disappointed in this, but I'm disappointed in this. Does it get the job done? Is it good enough for most people? Yes. Yes, it is. Am I being kind of nitpicky about it? Yes. Am I expecting technology from something that is sort of impossible right now? Probably. But notably, DJI also has an X5R camera, which is this camera, same sensor and everything, but it records RAW, and it has these giant SSD cards similar to the Red that it records on. I haven't played with one of those. The cool thing is you can rent them. I'm thinking about renting one from Lens Rentals just to play with it and see how much better that might, the results might be for me. But then DJI goes and they released the Inspire 2 back in November this year. I'm not mad about the Inspire 2, except that their new cameras, X5S and the X4S, I believe, are the cameras on it. And I haven't found confirmation one way or the other yet, but the implication seems to be that those cameras work exclusively with the Inspire 2. I'd hope to eventually be able to sell this guy and buy the newer cameras, for newer Zenmuse cameras as they come out, and still use them on my old drone. That would be a perfect situation. I don't know if that's going to happen, and I don't know if there's a technological reason behind that. It's hard for me to believe that there is. I think it's more of a economics thing where they would rather make you buy the whole new system than just a new part. But again, that doesn't make sense. It's like, why bother having the module camera system if you're not going to let them be interchangeable between drones? I think another one of the improvements with the Pro was that they added these quick release propellers, which are really kind of nice. They just kind of set in and you just turn this little lock to secure them rather than screwing them on, which I guess they had some problems early on with, like, people losing their propellers or, you know, whatever. There have been a couple firmware upgrades since I bought it, mostly minor improvements, mostly just been changes to the software for the app and kind of some improvements to, like, its GPS awareness stuff and all that kind of jazz. So I will say the app is pretty good. I mean, it's pretty great. I can't imagine anything else that the software would need to do that it's not giving me. It gives you great camera controls. It maps everything really well. It shows you where you're at, gives you all kinds of warnings, all kinds of control over the camera and the gimbal and the drone, and there's all kinds of modes and stuff, and it's very fully featured software. I don't really have any trouble or complaints with the software. And for the most part, I mean, everything's pretty automated. There's just a couple key things you have to know. It's in travel mode right now, which means I can't put the camera on, obviously, with the landing gear down. So take it out of travel mode. This is pretty much one of the coolest parts about it. Is just like, it just looks cool when you're using it. It's doom, doom, doom. Oh, there's a firmware upgrade. Aircraft requires upgrade. Refer to the tutorial videos in Academy. All right, well, I guess this is a little fortuitous. I can show you how this works. So this is the little micro SD card that goes in the camera. I'm gonna go to my computer, download it real quick, put it on here, then pop it in there, let it do the firmware cycle. All right, so pop the card in. I'm gonna turn it on. I think it will just automatically start installing it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's giving me a bunch of flashing color lights. What's kind of weird too is, like, the Osmo also has its own firmware, and it's updated also through an SD card put into this camera, but it's different than the Inspire One firmware. Even though it's the same camera and you're putting a card in the same thing to update the firmware, because that camera is connected to two different things, it's actually two different firmwares. because the stuff changes so fast. You know, if I master this drone, in another 2 years, it could have something totally different. It's not the specifics of how this stuff works is not fundamentally the same across the board. It's all just what's the specific software quirks for this camera on this drone with this level of firmware, which in 6 months may be completely different redesigned software, or something that I'm having to do manually here might become automatic in a few more months. Like, there's something about, like, you shouldn't have to sit and learn this as well as the DJI engineers know it, because they're constantly improving it and upgrading it, and before you know it, it's going to be all the problems that you've spent time mastering are going to be eliminated. So that's why I feel like a lot of this stuff should just be like, turn it on and it's fairly ready to go. Like with their gimbals, you should be able to put the camera on, do some basic balancing, and it should kind of take care of the rest. When it doesn't, and there's all these hoops you have to jump through, it's just kind of a waste of your time, because you know that it's just another matter of time before something comes out that fixes all those things. So why bother trying to learn it all? Why bother trying to master such a temporary piece of technology? Anyway, that's my little soapbox moment. All right, now I think it's done, because it's switched to a green light here, and we've got a solid green light on the camera. Getting strong radio channel interference, probably because I'm using my phone. What I do when I'm using my phone is put it in airplane mode. All right, I've got the back strap thing on. Got a jacket on too because it's cold, but this is kind of a cool thing. It lets you just let go of it if you want. It's either a really cool or really geeky thing to wear depending on who you ask. First thing, I've got green, green, green everywhere. Good signal. My camera settings need some work though, so real quick I'm gonna stop it down and let's take off. Ooh. There goes the landing gear. All of that's automatic. This is my dog Maybe. I just freaked her the fuck out. And there we go. So obviously one of the cool things about drones is just the point of view is so different and unique. You're not used to seeing the world this way, you know? So definitely makes for cool cinematography. It opens up a new valuable tool. So yeah, it's a bit windy today, but not that abnormal of a setting. So a lot of the drone shots I like to do are kind of complicated mixtures of drone movement and camera movement. It's like dropping down but tilting the camera up. It's a favorite. It's my dog Maybe. She's never seen this before. She's not supposed to be out right now. I'm freaking her out. She can also jump pretty good, so I'm not gonna get too low because she's gonna freaking jump up and grab it out of the air. There's a certain controller setting that makes it kind of similar to a video game. If you're used to like first-person shooters, that's kind of the control setup that I tend to use. As somebody that's played a lot of video games in my life, that makes drone operation fairly easy. I do like that they have those alternate setups. You can kind of find one that works for you. Not getting a very good feed to my phone today. Keeps like cutting in and out and getting blocky. I don't know why. It's a very sunny day. So sometimes what happens is you don't get a great kind of live feed, but technically the driving signal from the remote to the drone is really good. So you can kind of trust it a little bit. You know, your home point's been set, so worst case scenario, it will fly back to me, and it will, even if I drop my video feed. No, I keep losing it. Yeah, something's not right. I'm gonna bring it back because I'm not seeing what I'm gonna show you some other drone footage I've gotten from other shoots too, so I'm not gonna just focus on what I'm getting today. There she is. You're not supposed to get this close to it, but just for camera's sake. All right, so I'm not touching it right now. This is how smooth it is without me touching it. You probably sense it's kind of floating around a bit. It's doing all that on its own. I still haven't touched it yet. All right, let's go ahead and land. So I'll put the gear down, and now it's going down, and boom. And it does have ground sensors on the bottom, so it knows as it's hitting the ground. So auto land and auto takeoff are good things to use. For the most part, it works pretty well. There's something about flying something though, that you're always gonna be a little nervous every time you put it up, especially the more expensive drones you get, the more of a worry that is. Honestly, that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I'd probably still recommend just going with the Phantom 4 if you've never had a drone, or even if you have. I mean, I'm not sure the Phantom 4 camera is really all that much worse than the X5 on here. I mean, I'm sure somebody else has done a comparison. But you know, at the end of the day, it's almost as important, or probably more important, to have a safe flying drone than a great camera. In the case of the Inspire One, more expensive doesn't mean better drone per se. You're really paying for the camera. And then the only other thing I would say really is just that drones kind of fall in the same category that gimbals do. And if you saw my Osmo or my Ronin review, I think I mainly talked about in the Osmo review, which is that gimbal shots are kind of very popular and saturated right now. Like you see them a lot. The same is kind of true for drone shots. I was listening to a podcast, I don't remember where. Somebody was interviewing one of the festival programmers for the Sundance Film Festival, asking, you know, what are the trends they see, or what are some things to avoid, or she said one of the most annoying things, that every year there's some new toy, some new piece of technology that everybody just overuses. A couple years ago, the first thing was the gimbal and the long continuous take. Like the second gimbals came out, everybody was trying to do long takes and thought that that was like the key to like doing something cool. And now drones are everywhere. It's the same thing. Like people are just using drone shots way too much, and they're in everything. And it's just like, get it out of your system and try to focus on telling a story. And so DJI's whole kind of reputation is built on these tools that are kind of, they're extra tools in the toolbox, and they're cool tools, and they do allow you to do new and exciting things, but they're not things that need to be the core focus of your film or your story or whatever you're trying to do. It's important to weigh that, and not, you know, your primary camera should probably be where most of your money goes. All this additional support gear, whether it's a gimbal or a drone or a handheld rig or whatever, you know. At the end of the day, a good tripod is still probably a better investment, or a more important one, because that's what you're going to be using a lot more than you're going to be using that. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful or informative. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and give us a like or a subscription, and I'll try to get working on our next gear review.